cities across the country bracing for a second night of protests after the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. From New York City to Chicago to Portland, where police declared a riot after some in the crowd damaged buildings and threw things at police officers. The demonstrations happening after a jury found Rittenhouse not guilty of all charges connected to a shooting in Kenosha back in 2020. I want to go to my panel now. And David, I want to talk to you first. You know, yesterday, one of the head of the NYPD actually texted me shortly after the verdict that the entire personnel under the NYPD were ordered to stay on shift for fear of backlash. What say you?
Well, I say this is what's dangerous about the left unleashed, and we're now seeing them fully on display, because not only at the NYPD, where you and I probably know some of the same people who've been there for a while, but around the country, as I spoke to my sources and others on the back channels, they were talking about this. A lot of officers concerned about this precinct level. And when you look at one of the things reported by the Daily Caller, and they were instrumental in this case, even more so than a lot of the legacy and left-wing media, they were saying burn the precinct, every city, every town. So police departments knew what was coming.
Tammy, I don't know if you agree, but my thought on this is that the reason for the backlash has to do a lot with all the misinformation being reported by several media outlets. They're now trying to backtrack their reporting. There are so many facts that we're missing. Case in point, many Democratic politicians questioned whether, Rittenhouse was there in Kenosha the night of the shooting. It turned out he was already in Kenosha. He had family there, including his father. The gun was also in Kenosha. It also turns out the gun was not illegal, which is why the minor carrying a weapon charge was dropped.
He was working in Kenosha.
All of this is what has enraged America.
Well, but look, I think I would disagree in some sense that it's like any excuse. When you talk about Portland is upset and Portland is burning things down, what's new, right? It's like any excuse. And they don't care about the facts of the matter. They never have, even about the police. As the police have been effectively de facto defunded in so many of these cities, things have gotten worse. And that's fine with these individuals. I mean, look, I think that what has also made this a bigger problem, and I think you guys might agree with this, are the comments by office holders, like here in New York. De Blasio and even Cuomo opened up his pie hole to make a comment about how bad this was and to condemn the verdict, and the implication by members of Congress and by other mayors and other effectively leftists and Democrat politicians have fueled the fire, almost wanting riots, like they just don't want to be wrong. That's their big issue, right, you guys? That like they just don't want to be wrong about these things.
Yeah. Well, they're not backtracking.
and
they're
Charlie,
actually doubling down and tripling down, Julie, if you think about it. And Tammy, Charlie, hi, good to see you. But they're doubling down and tripling down. They're pushing the lie, and it's gone international. This is a very dangerous thing.
Charlie, first of all, she's talking about Democratic politicians and members of Congress, but it's not just members of Congress, it's the President of the United States, because when this happened during his election, during his campaigning, the President called him a white supremacist. He could actually be, found guilty for defamation. I mean, it's an actionable comment that he made.
Yeah, no, and I think that a big reason you're starting to see the media sort of backtrack on a lot of this stuff, they're trying to clean up a lot of the things that they said, because things just got real here. Because you've got a guy who is suddenly, not only is he not a white supremacist, and there's never been any evidence for that in the first place, but he's also been found not guilty. So we don't know exactly where all of this goes from here, but I can guarantee you, Kyle Rittenhouse has an opportunity to sue the living daylights out of a lot of people for defamation, and he's going to win. By the time this is all over with, he's going to be a very wealthy man.
Can I add something there? One of the funniest comments on Twitter was that Nick Sandmann and Kyle Rittenhouse have agreed to share custody of CNN. I mean, this is when you're looking at who's been suing and as though they didn't learn anything from before. But really, this is troubling, because even the comments that maybe people thought were like a little, more moderate, like from maybe even AOC. But the implication is that the system worked as it was designed to, and of course they're saying to protect the guilty white people, the guilty racist white people. That does not help the sensibility in this country. And I have to say, you guys, I think we're already seeing the backlash. All Americans, regardless of race, regardless of economic background, and especially those in urban areas, are tired of being used like this because it's their lives that get ruined.
It's their businesses that get ruined, everyone. I mean, look at it. Who loses here? The people lose. The American people lose their businesses, their livelihoods. And, you know, when you talk about a civil suit, Charlie, they're going to look at history in civil suits, someone's history. Biden has a history of being a race pimp where it suited him politically. And he did it again. He doubled down. He launched his campaign against Donald Trump with a lie about Charlottesville. Look at his entire history, and you'll see someone who's proven in front of a civil court.
Let's watch the moment when the jury finds Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty.
Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
This was a case of justifiable self-defense. Tammy, the media portrayed this guy as a man who crossed state lines, which is a federal offense, where you're going out aiming to shoot at black people. That is how the story was reported, and that is irresponsible, and it could potentially cost more lives.
Well, and some even right now are still doing that because there's some effort to try to get there to be federal charges because they don't like the result of this jury.
Exactly.
You know, this is what the mob does. It's what totalitarian regimes do. You just keep doing it until you get the result you want. But that is the only thing they have, because otherwise the federal government, thank goodness, can't step in something like this. But what you saw there, of course, he had to wait until the fifth verdict, because sometimes we see the baby getting cut in half. It's like a compromise if a jury is frightened. And so he needed to hear that last result to know that, in fact, this jury heroically, they were afraid, but they stood up to it. They didn't let go, and they did the right thing. And that's where you saw the collapse, is that finally when he knew this. But, you know, this is where you've got the mob trying to still maneuver this. This is what, and this is backfiring, Julie, I'm telling you, that this is what Americans aren't liking. This is not American. It is not the American way. It is not what our system is supposed to be. And we're going to see that as a result, not just in elections, but I think the tone in the country now, I believe, will stop the federal government from attempting to have a do-over.
And, you know, I think that is a very, very real possibility when you stop and think about the degree to which President Biden, from the very top, has politicized every aspect of this. The idea that federal charges could be brought against him that's not just some sort of fantasy thing. I think I honestly believe that this Department of Justice, this administration, is 100% capable of doing something like this in order to push their crazy political agenda into every aspect of this government. And it's terrifying.
They're criminalizing parents who are speaking up. This is why our tone, the response of the American people, has got to stop them.
All right. All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk more about the parents, by the way. I have plenty to say about that. Coming up, though, you got to watch this on Monday. Tucker Carlson, an exclusive you must not miss. He will be sitting down with Kyle Rittenhouse for his very first interview since the verdict. Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, must-watch TV.